Well, hello and welcome to the Car Care Not live stream, guys. How is everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing fine. Well, before we start, I'll share with you a few things. First, the car that I was supposed to buy, it was supposed to be made on September 22nd. Well, I guess that got pushed back at the beginning of November. So I guess I will be hemorrhaging on premium fuel costs for at least a month, maybe more. Who knows? Actually, over a month. And this has been quite an interesting week. So this week started with the washer and dryer breaking down, and then followed by the furnace going out. So this has been a very eventful week, at least for financially. Let's just say it this way. But all's good. I'm glad that the furnace went out now, not in the middle of winter, because yeah, that wouldn't have been good. But I mean, we're still weather is really nice right now. It's a little chilly at night, but mostly nice. But otherwise, all is well. I really miss you guys. It's been last week we didn't have a live stream, so miss you guys. I hope everybody's doing well. It's really good to be back. Having said that, let's dig right in. So Silvestre Ramirez, I have a 97 Camry 2.2 with the automatic transmission and 172,000 miles. I am planning a 3,000-mile trip from Washington to central Mexico. What should I get my car to prepare? What should I do to get my car prepared for it? So honestly, a car this old, and I will flat out come and say it, I don't recommend you taking on such a long trip, going especially to another country. But you know the condition of your car. I don't. In Washington, you guys don't have as much rust as we do here. Otherwise, you basically want to do a general full inspection. The main thing you want to focus on is tires, brakes, major oil leaks, um, suspension. Make sure nothing's falling apart, everything's intact. Get an oil change done. Do not, if you need to do any work to the car, do not do it a day or two before your trip. Make sure it's at least a week or two. That way, in case there's something else that comes up in result of working on the car, that you get it taken care of before you go on the trip. Otherwise, I mean, depends on the condition of the car. It's really hard to say, but make sure you inspect it properly, not just, oh, it drives fine, I'm just going to go. No, you need to get it inspected. That's too long of a trip to just go with blind faith like that. So, Jason, thank you so much for watching the channel, sir. So, Conrad Hittner, 20 Camry Hybrid. Occasionally, when braking, turning, and starting to accelerate, the PSD gives quite a jolt to the car. Is there a software update? So, this is something that I need to feel. Usually, the power split device will kind of either make that rattling sound when the engine's misfiring. You really can't tell if it's actually what's causing the jolt, but some of these cars, some of the hybrids, if you kind of jab into the accelerator, they kind of have like electric car takeoff. It's a jolt and then it kind of diminishes. But I'm wondering if that's what you're feeling. But this is really hard to discuss in this format. I would need to drive the car and see if it's normal. But as far as software updates, I'm not aware of any software updates for the Camry Hybrid. I think that's the best generation Camry Hybrid. We really haven't had any issues with the hybrid system at all. So Brian Cooley, you said mass airflow and throttle by. I wonder if you were writing a question before, but this is the first. I didn't see your question, so maybe post it down at the end or something, or posted a comment if we don't get to it. So Peter Andrews, 2008 Lexus RX 350, 250,000 miles. Should I drain and change the transmission filter? Just bought it from my cousin, and filter changed every 5,000 miles. Honestly, at this miles, I would leave the transmission alone unless you are sure that this has been maintained every 60,000 miles. If it has been maintained regularly every 60,000 miles, then I wouldn't worry about the filter. I would just change the fluid and keep going. If the fluid has never been changed, leave it alone, because you could open a can of worms that you don't want to open. So Chris Spurts, 400 Hybrid, what's the inside scoop? So folks, let's iterate this because a lot of you will be asking me. Yes, the 2022 Toyota Tundra is out, and it has a 3.5 that I have told you guys it's going to have, and it's going to have a hybrid option, which I don't know if we mentioned it before, We knew about this, and now that it's out, I will tell you first. You will see the regular model, the non-hybrid. Then potentially a month or two after that, you will see the hybrid rollout. That has been the typical rollout. And okay, I'm not going to say this is the information from inside, but that's about it. I am not a car journalist. I've said this multiple times. Um, I'm not gonna go and just read off a paper, stand next to the car, make a trip to Texas or wherever they're revealing the truck, and stand next to it and gloat over it and read you off a piece of paper. I think we all are adults. We can all read the piece of paper, and that's all the journalists are doing. And there is no real technical information. How is the hybrid system driven? Is it does it have one motor? Now they did mention it has one motor, but how is that wired? Is it similar to the LS 600, which is completely different, or the GS 450, or is it a standard hybrid? That's what information I'm waiting for, and it hasn't been released yet. Once it is released, and I have not a truck at some show where I have to go through all the motions to tell you about it. When I have a truck in my shop at the dealership, then it'll be up in the air and I'll show you everything from start to finish. But as far as the 4Runner hybrid, there's not even a word on that yet. Nothing. The only thing that we know is 2023 might be a change year for the 4Runner. Might. It's not even confirmed. So Jake Duncan, thank you for Jake saying thank you for the Tacoma series. I learned so much about my vehicle. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate it, sir. David Ross, 2007 Tundra 5.7, small exhaust leak on the driver's side. I was told it's from the exhaust header where the secondary air injection tube is. Can this be fixed by TIG welding, or should I replace exhaust header? So this is, I don't want to say this is a super common problem, but it does happen. You could try to fix it. It is you physically see a crack on these on this, like that little part that comes up and goes and connects to the tube that goes to the secondary air injection. It could possibly be fixed, but honestly, it's such a giant nightmare to remove that exhaust manifold that you might want to just replace it. Because imagine you fighting the good fight to remove it and then TIG weld it and then put it back on the truck, and then it's still leaking. Then you're back to square one, unless you take a risk and do it in the car, which you got to be really careful. I'm guessing if you're attempting something like that, you are experienced welder and you're gonna, you have precautions, you know what to do to protect everything else. But hey, it's worth a shot. You can't make it worse. You're either gonna fix it or not, then you know for sure. I would give it a shot. So Lala G, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for joining. I'm doing well. I hope you are doing well as well. So Superman, is a 2004-2006 Lexus ES330 a good car? Do they have any transmission issues? Looking to buy one with 120,000 miles. So actually that generation is very desirable, and it's very good in my opinion. Unless you buy one that is heavily neglected and really not taken care of, they're really good cars. They drive very nice. They're a little bit on the floaty side, but they're very comfortable. They're very refined. You feel like you're driving. Here's a 15-year-old car that drives like a brand new car because it's very smooth, very quiet. If it doesn't, though, then you know that's not a good one to buy. 120,000 miles is nothing for these cars as long as the maintenance is kept. So my focus would be inspection and maintenance records. If everything checks out, this is a very good car. Just make sure you drive it, get a feel of that steering. They can be super floaty, these. So, some people, it would drive me crazy, but just get past the typical 2-mile test drive to make sure you like the car. If you like it, don't overpay for it. That's another thing with these, but this is a very good car to buy. Spicy Copper. I purchased a used 2011 Toyota Sienna. It has 142,000 miles. I don't know when was the last scheduled maintenance. I'm planning a 5,000 mile trip. Should I get 150,000 miles scheduled maintenance or something else? Well, first you want to get the whole truck inspected. The van inspected. You want to make sure that there's no issues, especially suspension. The Siennas kind of chew up their suspension as they get older. Make sure the tires are good, brakes. The same thing that we went through with the previous one with the Camry, but you really want to get the car inspected, and don't just get it inspected and the next day go. Give it a few days if you get any work done. That gives you a chance in case something else pops up, you can take care of it. Dusty 2021 4Runner, 30,000 miles, towed in S4 for about 1,600 miles. Unhooked, experienced hard upshifts, and drives for about 100 miles, then it went away. You know what? S4 is not exactly a shift position. Now, technically, and I say this technically, when the transmission is off and you're in drive, you're actually the same as neutral, um, because there's nothing hydraulically going on. You're not spinning, nothing is connected. Everything is hydraulically moved and connected. So I don't think it's a concern, but I wonder why it was shifting hard in drive, and then it went away. As long as it went away, we're good. You do want to change the fluid as the time comes up, or maybe take a sample of the fluid, see how it's looking, and yeah, go from there. But I think you're good. I don't think you have caused issues, or at least severe ones. So Charles Bronson, they're asking 5 to 15,000 over MSRP for a DRD Pro 4Runner 21, 22. What's the max, in your opinion, one should pay for this? I understand the car shortage. You should pay zero over MSRP. And you know what? The TRD Pro is a very, very nice truck, but it becomes a very horrible truck the minute you pay $1 over MSRP. Folks, people are only thinking of today. Here's what's going to happen in the future. You bought this truck, you paid $15,000 over MSRP. One of the biggest things about the 4Runners is how they retain their value. But if you overpay for them, 3 years from now, you want to sell it, you could be underwater. That's not good, because guess what? You buy the truck over MSRP, but the values of cars are not reflecting that. And you buy it 3 years from now, we might be out of this, and the prices will come back down. And all these people who overpaid for these cars will be underwater on these cars. Basically, you owe more than the car is worth by a giant stretch. So be careful with this. Please do not overpay for cars. I don't care how good the car is and how much you want it. Make a conscious decision of not overpay for cars. MSRP, okay, we're not getting deals below MSRP, but don't pay over MSRP. It's just, please do yourself a favor and don't do that, because it is only going to bring financial ruin. And all of a sudden, this car that you love so much that you paid for is just going to go down the drain. Rico's Painting and Drywall. I have a 2018 Tacoma TRD Offroad, but I want second vehicle, maybe a new Tundra or a new Tacoma, or a used 4Runner or used GX460. So it depends what you're looking for in the truck. If you want a work truck, maybe a Tundra would work. You already have a Tacoma, maybe go with a Tacoma. You really can't go wrong with these trucks, even the GX460. But you got to make sure it's not a rusty one, because you buy a rusty one, if it's an older one, it's just going to be a nightmare. Yeah, I don't know if you live in the Rust Belt or not, but if you don't, you're good. Just don't buy a rusty one. If you are, make sure you buy one that's been undercoated, taken care of, not severely rusted if you're buying an older one. So Art Vandelay, when doing timing belt on a 2UZ FE, when do you use the T marks near the cams, pulleys versus the standard timing marks? That's an excellent question. So one thing that is common with that 2UZ FE is when you put them on the zero marks, or the perfect top dead center, they're very jumpy. As soon as you touch that cam gear, well, we're talking about a timing belt replacement for everybody else. As soon as you touch that cam gear, it just jumps one way or another. And there has been cases where that jump bends a valve, believe it or not, because it just jumps so violently that the piston moves, the valve moves down, and it just slaps the piston and it bends it. So they put that T mark where now you're a little bit off top dead center and it's not as jumpy. That's the only purpose of that. I mean, you could do it at the standard marks, but you got to be very careful, because we've actually seen cases of valves getting bent. You're not going to see it right away because it's not a big bend like when the timing belt breaks, for example. But it's gonna have like lack of power. Then eventually it's gonna have a random misfire code, and that's what it was. But put it on the T marks. That way, it's not as jumpy, and if it does jump, it's far off, so it doesn't. That was something that was added in engineering, so because they put it at top center, and this thing is very jumpy. So that's the purpose of that T mark. Actually, speaking of that, I gotta do a. Right now at work, I have I want to say it was an '07 4Runner V8. I got to do a timing belt on. I haven't done a timing belt on these for a while. I love doing these. Everybody in my shop hates them. I love them because they're so fun. They're easy to do. But for some reason, people see it complicated. It's not that complicated. It just looks intimidating. White Lion 1470. I have a 2016 Toyota Corolla S model, and when I pull up to a red light, I have an RPM drop. I got it for 50,000 miles. It has 80,000 miles. I've done oil change every 5K, drive it over 150 miles 5 days a week. So the first thing I would do is try to clean the throttle body. That should resolve the issue. A slight drop in RPM could be normal. Everything is loaded up and electrically, and the RPM drops, and it could be that the alternators, these alternators have a clutch to kind of reduce their load. It could be kicking on and kind of causing that RPM fluctuation, but try cleaning throttle body and see if it resolves it. Kimberly Care W, 2013 Sienna all-wheel drive with a C1407 code. Replace the axle and the right rear speed sensor. The issue still persists. Well, the first thing is, and I gotta look at the code real quick. Let's see. Okay. So the first thing I want you to look at is erase the code. And while you're looking at the scan tool, does it come right back? If it does come right back, you actually have an electrical circuit problem to the sensor, not the sensor itself. And when you said you replaced the rear axle and the speed sensor, were these originals? You got to look at that. And then next, what is this sensor doing when you're driving? This needs a little bit of diagnosis. You see how this needs a little bit of diagnosis? You're going to want to see in the with a scan tool, look at these readings of these sensors, see what that sensor is doing. Is it just flat reading zero, or is it fluctuating all over the place? And that's how you're going to establish what's going on with it. But if the code comes right back away, doesn't take a little bit of driving to come back, you have an electrical problem. So you look at the wire from the ABS actuator all the way to the sensor. All righty. So our Linux 3 AMD, the D7 link in your review was showing sold out. They'll extend their discount to compensate after seeing your review. I'm looking forward to getting one. Yeah, so for everybody else, I recently reviewed a scan tool, Xtool D7. They are sold out. I did send them an email and tell them, when do you look to be restocking? Because a lot of viewers are asking, and they should have the discount. I mean, I don't know. They didn't really give me a time frame for how long that discount was going to go for. Usually they do. It's usually a month, something like that. But I think we're still within that time. Let's see when they do come back in stock if I can talk to them again and get you guys the same discount again if it goes away. Joey M, 2021 RAV4 XLE Premium. How to adjust the interior circulation. Lights stay on all the time. Every time I start the car, interior circulation vent always off. So you're trying to change it to fresh air all the time. So try not to put the temperature of the AC. I don't know what temperature you're setting it at. It should stay within where you left it, unless you put it on maximum AC and on auto mode. It could kick it on automatically to maximize the air conditioning, but it should stay off. I actually gotta look into this, because if memory serves right, it should stay off. The fewer of the older models, they used to default to on, but most of the newer ones default to off. But make sure you're not on max AC. So Bruce Davis, we have a 2007 Camry with a 2GRFE, only 50,000 miles. It has started making a shrieking sound when idling. Apparently, it might be an idler roller, failure issue, expensive. So, Bruce, there are a few things that it could be. This also needs a little bit of diagnosis, but I'll give you a few scenarios here, common ones at least. First is the idlers. The idlers are notorious. This car at this point should have had an idler replaced already from the old design, but because it has such little miles, I can imagine this is a very clean car. Um, there was a very common issue back in the time when this car was more mainstream, coming in a dealer every other day. But the idlers are not very expensive. You're probably looking, I mean, dealership world it might be, but we're not talking thousands here. We're talking hundreds. And if you're going to go ahead and replace one idler that's bad, I would replace the three, one shot, and be done. Maybe put a new belt if you need it. The other possibility is a water pump. Also common on these. This gets a little expensive. This might, if your dealership prices, this might put you just over $1,000 to fix it. But um, if you are, the best way to know is remove the drive belt, spin everything, make sure that the water pump pulley doesn't have play. Shouldn't take a seasoned mechanic more than 10-15 minutes to figure it out. It's not difficult. Either job is, even if it gets expensive, these are, common issues with this engine. And at this age, I think you're doing pretty good. Many people have replaced their water pump and idlers a lot more than if this is the first time for this car. But these are the two possibilities I was chased after. So, XJ Offroad, can you make a navigation update video? So, yes, I could, but the problem is I don't recommend it. So, I don't know how I feel about making a video showing you how to do something that I don't recommend you do. It's just not worth it. It's way too expensive. And usually they install the map and it's already outdated. So, I don't know how I feel about that one, honestly. But I could. I mean, I can actually help you do it if you're doing it yourself. Ted Pogorzelski, sorry if I said that. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Jerwin Tabor and Tom Alexander, Spider Logan. Thank you so much, guys, for joining the live stream. Patrick Nakamichi. Aloha, I have a 2021 4Runner Nightshade 4x4. Is it possible to add OEM blindside monitor or will it be difficult? Honestly, it is difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And at the cost that it's going to cost you to modify everything, I wonder if it's worth it. It's probably not worth it. Honestly, I'll just giving you honest to guys, not about money, but this is something you're going to spend so much and so much custom wiring and all this. Is it even worth it? Probably not. Unfortunately, I wouldn't recommend it. But is it possible? Everything is possible when the budget is infinite. Jason Montejano, 2008 Yaris, 254,000 miles, new battery, new cheapo starter, original alternator, has a longer crank when cold. So you want to investigate what's going on with the crank when it's cold. The first thing I would look at in the basic, which I doubt is the issue, but you got to cover the basics. Check your fuel pressure. Is the fuel pressure dropping way too low? It should sustain some fuel pressure, and you want to start the car, hook up your gauge, start the car, see what's going on with your fuel. Is it taking too long to build up, or it's already there? And then shut off the car and leave it for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, you should still have some fuel pressure. And then the other thing is look at your intake manifold gasket. Not very common, but look for vacuum leaks. That's something that causes these cars to crank long and kind of run rough a little bit when they're cold, and then it smooths out. So that's another thing to look at. All right, so 404 not found. Thoughts on Hotel MD806? So I don't really have experience with that particular model, but the D7 that I reviewed, according to the company, it's a direct competition to the MX808 or something like that, but the D7 costs less and has more features. All these scan tools, and I briefly looked at that one actually. It is, I don't know if you watched that video. I said there's the cheap scan tools that really work, that does what you need them to do, what most people need them for. And then there is the professional ones. Then in between, there's all these $200-300 scan tools that do nothing and they're worthless. That seems like one of them. It does one or two things that are good, but basically it's a glorified code reader and live data. Not really worth it. So either go with the lower end or go with the higher end and get a lot more, but you spend $200-300 and you basically have almost the same capabilities as a $100 scan tool, or you can spend a little bit more and get all the capabilities. But these in-between scan tools, they really don't make sense. Walt Pro, going to test out a 2018 Camry SE tomorrow, 170,000 miles at $15,000. Does this sound like a good deal? Are there anything you recommend I look out for in particular? That's a little bit too much miles for a car at this age, but the price is also a little on the high side. But the biggest thing is you gotta really inspect this car. When you buy high mileage cars, some of them will be even better than condition than lower mile cars. It depends on how it was taken care of. Now, obviously, this is not a car that's set. This is high miles. Was it an Uber car? Uber cars get beat up usually. And was this a commercial car, or was this just a traveling salesman, somebody who drives a lot, always on the highway? In that case, this car is not worn, but you got to also back it up with, service data, not service data, sorry, maintenance history. You can't just buy the car based off, oh yeah, it was taken care of. According to who? Papers talk. That's the main thing. So Night Rush Australia manual for M20A are online. They recommend a wide range of oils. Do you still think the naturally aspirated cars require 0W16 for the oil pump, or is it political? Well, I don't think a manufacturer like Toyota will recommend an oil because it's political, but I would say this. Every market, even though it's the same engine, it's not the same engine because some of these engines are different. You have the programming that is different. You have all the requirements are different. The emission standards are different. So you got to be careful with that. Always go with what your owner's manual that came with the car's recommendation for oil weights. If they give you the multi weight, use the weight that is appropriate for the temperature. If they specifically tell you only use 0W20, then only use 0W20 or 0W16 or whatever the case may be. That is your safe bet to not have issues. Charles Bronson, dealers are telling me that Toyota is not allowing them to order any TRD Pros, that the window is not open. Is that true? Can I just order on my own? So you can't, if the dealership is not able to get orders through, and that does happen sometimes, you can pre-order stuff, but at the current climate, they're not able to. They're kind of limited with that. So the dealership has no reason to lie to not allow you to order a car. They're not open for business to just have the shiny display in the front. They want to sell cars. So when you come in, hey, I want to put a deposit on a car, they're going to take it. But when they tell you we can't, that's eating at their heart. They can't do that. But it is legit. But just don't overpay for new cars. It's just not worth it. Not all dealerships are taking advantage of this. I work at a dealership where I looked the owner in the eye, the owner of the dealership, the other day. We just had a conversation about this. I'm like, I really hope you're not going to allow selling over MSRP. He just looks at me and goes like, I want to sleep at night. If we're not going to give people discounts off MSRP, we're going to sell them at MSRP, and that's it. We're not going to price gouge people, because you know what? This thing that we're in right now might last a year or two, but then when it's over, everybody will remember how we price gouge them, and I don't want to be that person. So yes, there are dealers out there who are not price gouging. Maybe dealership shop rather than car shop. So Alan Dust, 2007 FJ Cruiser P0420 code. CAT and sensors changed. 4 mechanics have worked on it and nobody has fixed it. Well, usually that's a red flag when 4 mechanics have worked on it and nobody has fixed it. The PR420, were the CAT original? Are they replacing the right CAT? There's 2 CATs in this car. If memory serves right, this is PR420 should be bank 1, which is the passenger side of the truck. Are they replacing the right one? Is it original? That's what you want to head after. David Barrows, 2003 GS450H, transmission fluid change. Where to refill the transmission and what temperature to check the fluid at. So this one will be a slightly different than your standard hybrid transmission. You're gonna, if memory serves right, and I haven't really worked on these in a long time, they're not really that popular here. It should be almost a standard procedure, just like a normal transmission with the overflow tube. And I don't have the transmission fluid temperature right off the top of my head. I would have to look it up. Leave a comment in the description in this video or any of the other videos, and I'll get back to you on that one because I really have to look up the temperature for that one. Don't have that right off the top of my head. Roll with me. Buying a 2021 RAV4 Hybrid. One VIN number starts with J. Another VIN number starts with 4, made in Kentucky, USA. Which one do you recommend and why? I would go with the one you like, disregarding the VIN number. Which one has the options you want? Which one is a better price? That's the one you'll go with. We just finished filming a video today, and I said we, and I'll tell you this in a second. I'll give you a sneak peek. I sat down with an engineer, a very renowned engineer, actually, that have worked with Toyota production for a very long time, I think over 30 years. We did an interview, and it was not an interview, I wouldn't call it that, but we had a conversation, me and him. It's recorded already. You're going to see that video in the next week or two. We shared everything from the inside about that. Our Japanese-made Toyota is really better than the American-made one. And I might have referred that in the past and told you that this is going to happen. It is there. It's done. Today we finished it, and you're going to see it. Honestly, I'm not going to get too much into it right now because I don't want to spoil the video for you guys, but it absolutely makes no difference in longevity and reliability. So don't waste your breath. Look at the car, where the car is assembled, not made. This is where it gets confusing. It's not made, it's assembled. So focus more on the car, the color, what you like about it, the options, the price, more than where it's made, honestly. So, Buddy Toby TV, 2004 Highlander with 127,000 miles. Do I ever need to replace the PCV valve? Also, any issues with switching Costco synthetic oil over conventional? So, the PCV valve, every spark plug replacement, change it. On that truck, it is so simple to replace. It's right there. I would just replace it for the sake of it. Buy an original one. Don't buy aftermarket. We've had issues with aftermarket ones. And Costco synthetic oil, a lot of people are saying good things about it. I personally haven't used it in my cars, but I hear a lot of good things about it. Just don't go 10, 15,000 miles on it because I don't know what kind of oil it is. But so egg SR2B crushed. Is the Supra B58 oil burning issue fixed with the later 2021 and 2022? Honestly, I have no clue because we're still waiting on information on the 2021 Toyota, the 2021 oil burning issue to begin with. We have zero information. We're basically just, oh yeah, if it burns oil, just store an engine. They just don't want to, we don't have any information about it. I don't know if the 22, 21, the late 21s or the 22s still have the issue. We really haven't been getting any information on that. And it's kind of getting frustrating because a lot of people ask us about that. And I would love to have an answer, but really they're not giving us any. So we're still in limbo on that. We still see the 21s showing up with burning oil. I don't know. That's interesting. That's interesting situation with the B58. I don't know what's going on. And BMW is not very forthcoming, and then they're a completely different company, and you're not going to get them to admit it. So we'll wait and see. Lewis Hain, 2012 Toyota Tundra. The fan was missing a blade for the first 1,000 miles, causing vibration. Should I worry about the water pump bearing? Probably not. I mean, the bearing can take a beating unless this is a warranty situation. I wouldn't worry about it. Just put the fan on, drive it. The water pump, if it ever goes and start making noise, then worry about it. Otherwise, don't worry about it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I would tell you. So Brian Cooley, 2013 4Runner, 190,000 miles, slight vibration while stopped in drive or reverse, clean mass throttle body, and improved. New plugs, no codes, runs great. More noticeable when NC compressor kicks on. So some vibration is actually normal for the 4Runner, believe it or not. I don't know if this is you're comparing it to when it was newer or you just got this. Details like that make it a little bit easier for me to give you a direct answer, but I wouldn't chase it too much. If it's a very slight vibration, it is normal. Yes, you can get into engine mounts and transmission mount, and you go into this whole mess. But if the vibration is slight, I would cut it right here and call it a day, because you could be chasing this forever and then only find out that most of it is normal, some of it is just flat wear and tear, which is okay. You could drive this thing for another 10, 15 years and it'll be the same. And why are we trying to fix something so minor and dumping all this money? Do you catch my drift here? Do you see where I'm going with this? Try not to overread it into a big problem, because sometimes a small annoyance, we tend to want to fix it and spend all this money and then it's not fixed. Then we find out, well, we can just live with it. And then 10 years later, it's like, why did I make such a big deal about this and spend all that money? So I just don't want you to go on that path. Hotel versus launch. I honestly don't have much experience with launch. Hotel, I've used a few of their scan tools, so I can't really give a biased opinion on both because I haven't used both in the same way. So, thoughts, CMAS, I think we've talked about thoughts about the new Tundra. You'll see it when it's in my shop. iCost, he has a, okay, that is not a question. About the new Tundra, we talked about this. I will wait until the Tundra is parked in front of me. I think we all can watch Toyota's video, which is brilliant, in my opinion, about the journalist specs, which after that, the journalists seem to disappear when the real specs come out. But you will see the real specs when they're actually out, and I have a truck to show you the real specs. That will be really nice to do. So JCAK552 2021 TRD. How to determine if one of the front bearings is bad. Slight noise when turning at low speeds. Hard to tell at normal speeds. The tire noise is loud. Well, it is. This is the kind of situation where I need to drive the car to feel it. The noise, is it a growling noise? Is it a humming noise? Or is it could be just from tires? But bearing, if how you tell the bearings are bad, I'm assuming this is either a 4Runner or a Tacoma. You didn't really specify, just a TRD. You're gonna lift the front end, move the wheel this way, hold it from top to bottom and move it. If it has play, it's a bearing. Another thing is, hold the shock or the strut and spin, the spring, and spin the wheel by hand. You're going to feel, compare left and front, left and right, and you're going to feel the one that is bad. It's going to be louder and it'll make more scratchy sound. Otherwise, I'm going to have to really drive this to know, because it's a 21, so I don't know how many miles it has, but when you're turning at low speeds, it could be the tire noise. If this is a TRD Pro model that has the more aggressive tires, do you have modifications? There's a lot of information that I would need on this one. Maybe leave me that information as a comment in this video or another video, and we'll once I get that information, I'll be able to help a little bit more. Randy Schaefer, I have a 2016 Corolla S. Getting the oil filter off is almost impossible. Usually ends up in being destroyed. Do they address this? So, if you never over tighten this filter to begin with, you will not have issues with it. That's the main thing with these. If you're not sure how not to over tighten it, use a torque wrench. That's the easiest way not to over tighten it. But if you over tighten it, it's just going to be a nightmare. And make sure you put some oil on the O-ring. That's another mistake I see. People just clean everything and just put it like that. First, you risk damaging the O-ring and having a leak. Second, it might be a nightmare to remove it. That's the only things I think about. So Naveen the Machine, the 2020 Camry trunk lid gets stuck. When I open the trunk, I have to force push it up a bit to open it. But if I close it and reopen it again, the trunk link is a bit. So what's happening here is your seal is getting stuck to the trunk itself. We've seen this a lot. What you want to do is clean the seal up. Take a little bit of some alcohol and just wipe it off. Wipe the area on the trunk where it goes, and then try it. You get tree sap and all kinds of stuff, and some of them have almost like a glue thing, and it'll just rubber will stick to the metal. It will happen a lot more when it's colder, but try that, and that should alleviate it, or at least get it better. You can also coat the rubber with like silicone spray just to make it not stick as much. So Joseph Pickle, Would you buy a tried and true fifth generation 22 Forerunner or wait for the new sixth generation 2023 Forerunner? Word is the base engine will be a turbo inline four. So I will say this. If this question was, should you buy a 2021 Tundra or 2022 Tundra, it would be more of a timely question or a relevant question. But the thing is, we don't even know if there is going to be a 2023 Forerunner that's going to change per se. Um, Honestly, if you're looking for a truck, look at the current model. If they've announced it, then maybe kind of you're intrigued. Okay, maybe I'll wait to see what. But they haven't even announced it, and they might not announce it. We just don't know that. So if you need a car today or in the next 6 months, you can't go wrong with a 22 Forerunner. And trust me, when they announce the 23 Forerunner, you can always turn around and sell your current Forerunner for the crazy resale value on the Forerunners. Yes, when the new model comes out, it might kind of shake the values a little bit, but it's not going to be significant. You can't go wrong with a Forerunner, folks. Unless you don't overpay for it initially, you can't go wrong with buying a Forerunner today. Well, if you can find one, that's the problem. So, Jonathan Meza, thank you so much for joining the chat. Spider Logan, what were the DTCs for the washer and or dryer? So the dryer is the one that was giving me trouble. It's not really codes. I don't know. I didn't really read codes. Sorry, I probably treat the washer and dryer like a car. It these little valves on the gas valve, not valve solenoids, I think, they went out, replaced them. They went out again, and we replaced them the third time. And initially, I was like, okay, I don't have time. I don't have patience for this. Called a buddy. He works in appliance repair. He came over, and the best part is I asked him. So I was like, "There's two valves. Do they turn on together, or one is high, one is low?" He just looks at me. He's like, "I don't know. Here are the two valves. Have a nice day." So yeah, I guess that industry is a little different than cars. But yeah, it's the valves that keeps going. So I look at the whole thing. It's old. It's falling apart, and I keep replacing the valves, and it's just like. And now he tells me if the valves keep going, you might need an igniter. So okay, we're not gonna keep with this. I have a family with kids that we need this thing. Use this thing all the time. Just can't replace it and be done with it. So cool, dude. Highlander Hybrid versus Sienna Hybrid, which is safer from accidents? Uh, Really hard to say just like that. They're both safe cars. I don't think I would take one over the other for the safety aspect of them. They both have similar ratings. They're both safe cars. I would actually look at their function or what your need of it is. That's always a good approach to buying cars. Is not buy them based on um, where they're made or comparing two very similar cars, which one is safer. This is information that you can easily obtain from like crash ratings or all that. These are accurate information. These are not exaggerated numbers or whatnot. But the main thing is the function is the main thing that you want to look at. Right lane hog, was it the heat exchanger? Yeah, that was the end determination igniter. I don't know if that's part of the heat exchanger, but that is where we're headed at. So Ahmed Marine, hello, I have a question. I hope you posted your question. I don't see it. Well, you can always post it as a comment later. Tom Alexander, is it a good idea to put your automatic transmission in neutral or park when stopped at a stoplight for someone who does a lot of stop and go traffic? What is better, park or neutral? Honestly, I would not put it in neutral or park. Unless you're going to be standing there for an hour plus, like let's say you're stopped at a traffic light, or not a traffic light, like a train is passing in front of you, or there's an accident, or you're at a dead stop, then put it in park. But really changing back and forth, it doesn't do good for the transmission. When you're in a drive, the clutches are engaged, the torque converter is doing the spinning. Yes, that raises the temperatures a little bit, but it's not as much as when you put it in neutral. Now the clutch is disengaged. Then you put it in drive. They didn't engage again. That just is unnecessary movement. I would just stay in drive unless you're going to be parked there for an hour plus. Then put it in park just for the sake of not raising the transmission temperature too much. So, low will, you don't talk much about the current model 200 series Land Cruiser. Did they need a lot of servicing? My local dealers rarely sees them outside of the basic oil changes and maintenance. And that is a very, very good assessment because they really don't, we don't see much. I mean, I think I did my first, and I posted a picture on Instagram on this. I did my first like engine repair. I don't know if you want to call it, it's like minor stuff. I did my first water pump on a 200 series like a few months ago. I was like, wow, this is, I'm just remembering it. I'm like, this is the first time that I do anything other than maintenance on a 200 series Land Cruiser. Believe it or not, they are that reliable. They're crazy reliable. Now, we've done our fair share of seatbelt buckles, little stuff, this handle broke, but stuff that are owner induced, not necessarily, quality induced to the car. Um, I'm actually working on introducing Land Cruisers to the channel. I have a very good customer and a good friend. He's a big Land Cruiser fanatic. He wants to bring a couple of his trucks. He's a collector. He has really pristine ones. He wants to bring a couple of them. We're just working. This might get pushed past the winter because if I can't get this to happen fast enough, he does not drive these things in the winter. So I want him to bring them to here to the studio so we can studio to my home garage, and we'll make a few videos on them, show you around, talk about the very minor things that they have, and they're really nothing. When he has a few older ones, but he also has a new one, so they're really hard to come by to make a video on them. So JCAK552. So this was follow up to the previous question. 2021 Camry TRD 9K miles on the possible bearing noise and bought that D7 scanner. Okay, so it's really, I'm trying to think on the Camry, anything. I've seen one bearing, but that was, I think, an 18 or 19 Camry. But with this low miles, I would. Could you record a video and upload it to YouTube? Send me a link. Let me listen to it. I'd have to hear it. It's the same thing. You can lift the front end off and kind of move the wheel this way if you see any play. But I doubt you're gonna have that. I wonder if this is tire noise. Try this actually. The TRD Camry have some pretty aggressive tires. Try raising the sorry, not raising, actually raise the tire pressure. Like if you set it at 35, 36, raise it to 40, try it, and then lower it to 30 and try it. See if that pit changes, because that might be from the tires as well. Now that you said it is a Camry, thought it was a Forerunner or Tacoma. Adrian Miranda, I am a Toyota tech myself. Well, thank you for joining the live stream, sir. So Rico's painting and drywall. You're looking at buying another. I think we answered this one already. Luis Elizabeth Nito, have a 2020 Tundra with no transcooler. Temps get around 220, no towing, 240, 250 towing. It's the Tundra, it's bulletproof. So why did they do that? Well, honestly, I never could get a straight answer out of that one. If you're seeing 250 temperatures towing, I would put a cooler. That is a little much. If you're only hovering around 210, 220 when towing, then don't worry about the cooler. But if you're towing, you're seeing 250, I would install. I don't know why Toyota did that. I want to say it's they did some testing, but from the temperatures I'm seeing now, I'm questioning it at this point. But yeah, that's unfortunate. But what are you gonna do? Andrew, you're back. So, Andrew, I was actually thinking about you the other day. I haven't seen you comment or seen you in the live streams. Andrew is a Nissan technician who joined the good side. He became a Toyota technician and a man of a good heart. I really admire you, sir, and give a huge shout out to you because he joins the live stream to help people. I admire people who want to help others. So, shout out to you, Andrew. Good to see you back, man. So, Mike, Did your boss get mad for that Mercedes video you did? No, he likes it. He's actually my service manager is a Jeep and Chrysler fan himself. He just doesn't seem to. He owned a lot of Toyotas, of course, but currently I think he has a Ram 1500, 2500, something like that. He just likes to change it up as well, and likes to try. He's big on the Jeep scene. He has a few Jeeps, owned multiple Jeeps, so he's into the Jeep scene. Maybe one day we'll convince him to join the bright side and buy a fall runner, because I think Jeeps are, yeah, I have a very harsh opinion of Jeeps, so let me keep it to myself. KM Klein, glad to see you back. I did the coolant change per your video. Should the end of the bleeder tube be submerged? It seems like to have a vacuum effect otherwise. No, don't submerge it. That's where things go south. You should not submerge the. By the way, we're talking about a 2G RV6 bleeding coolant procedure that I have a video on. I showed you how to run a hose. Do not submerge the hose. That's how it's supposed to be. I know it doesn't look right, but um, don't submerge the hose. So Stuart Bryan, do I need to take my Tundra to the dealership to repair the blind spot monitor? Well, really good shops will be able, and there's a lot of good shops will be able to deal with it, but most shops will prefer you take it to the dealer because this is where they don't want to deal with this complication. That's the problem with some of the shops, and I don't blame them. You know, some of these systems get so complicated that they just don't have the tools and equipment and all that for one car every year that they might get. So they might just flat tell you, just take it to the dealer, man. We don't want to deal with this headache. So you might have to basically take it to the dealership in the end. So Imran, hope you're doing well. I was working on 13 or 14, I believe, Toyota Tundra. It has shaking when braking over 50 miles an hour. The pads or rotors and calipers in the front have all been replaced. Interesting. I wonder if the shaking is in the steering wheel or is it in the like the body of the truck, if it's front or rear. Now, do you have any bent hubs? Do you have any or the rotor sitting right or the aftermarket? This is the stuff that you want to get look into. The other thing is tires. Believe it or not, when you slam on your brakes, you're actually putting a lot of weight in your tires. If you have bad tires, they could cause vibration. A lot of people don't think of that. But swap the tires around, and that's the general direction I would start with. Luigi 2021 RAV4 Hybrid, brand new, living in Canada with heavily salted roads. Yep, same thing here. That's the worst thing in the planet. Any issues, have it rust proofed with a synthetic oil spray, third party. Any issues, spray underbody in some holes on doors. That shouldn't be an issue. I don't see an issue at all, actually. If you want to really take it to the next level with the rust proofing, have your installer remove all the covers, spray underneath, like the actual body, and then put the covers back. If you trust them to do that, I would do that because that's actually rust proofing. Most of these, I've seen some of the ones that come in rust proof. They literally just sprayed what is open, went underneath the cover, sprayed a little bit, and that's it. You really didn't cover majority of the car. These cars are really well covered underneath. So 2006 RAV4 2AZ. How do I reset the idle? Clean mass airflow and throttle body. Let it idle for 10 minutes. Drove 5 miles, still idling at 600 RPM. Well, did you clean the throttle body really well? That's the only way, because there is no really um, there is nothing else that controls the idle. If you actually clean the throttle body really well, you're going to notice your idle will come up. It'll go to 1100, for example. Then you'll need to drive it for a while until it settles. But I wonder if you have other issues. Do you have a check engine light? Do you have anything else that's going on that's causing it to have a low idle? Because other than throttle body, nothing really controls it. Try disconnecting the battery overnight. I mean, I doubt this, and this is something that might open a little can of worms, but try it. Try disconnecting the battery overnight to see what happens. So, the Poker Pilot app, giving a virtual hug to AMD for all the time. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it. James Carroll, hi from Kentucky. Man, you want to stop there and see what they're doing in the factory there? I don't know what part from Kentucky you are watching from, James, but thank you so much for watching the live stream. All right, guys, let's see. So, Lion Runner, what is your advice when old halogens failed on an old fifth generation 4Runner. Aftermarket LED bulbs, good idea, not the cheapest, a good brand. So here's my problem with LED headlights. So you're going from, and I'm assuming when you said older fifth generation, I'm assuming you mean like 2010 to 2013. Well, the problem is when you put LED headlights in a halogen housing, not the projectors, but that one has like a regular housing, you're gonna blind everybody, and that's a problem. Now, if you want, and if you want to do this right and you want to not blind people, they do sell aftermarket headlights. They work well. They have the correct projector for it. If you have a projector already, yeah, it's not going to be ideal, and I'm not saying that, but it'll be better than blinding people everywhere. So that would be my thing. Another thing on halogen headlights for everybody: whenever one bulb goes, replace both. I understand this is most people will be like, well, why are you replacing it? Because you're actually then going to have one bright light and one dim one. So you want your lighting, it's a safety thing. You want to be, you're going to notice it immediately when you replace one bulb and the other one's old. You're going to notice it. So whenever you're replacing bulbs, if you want, replace both for even lighting. But LEDs, you could, but you're going to notice that there's going to be glare and you're going to be blinding everybody. That's the only thing I don't like about them. Oh, here we go. Ahmed Marin. I have a 2015 Camry SE. I have a noise on top of my exhaust. Looks like it's a heat cover. I went to a busy muffler place. Told me not to worry too much, but annoying to hear. They should fix that. Usually the heat shields, they break from rust. That's typical with these. And you don't have to replace the shield. Some places, oh, you got to replace the shield because they don't want to spend 5 minutes, save people 100, 150 bucks for the same thing. Well, all you do is these shields on the body, they're held with a 10 millimeter nut, just like a wide little white end nut, and it just holds the shield. Well, from rust and all time, that area around the nut breaks off, and then the shield falls. Well, what you do is take that nut off, get a really big washer, put the washer, put the nut, have a nice day. I don't understand. And this is, if you take it to a shop, this is going to cost you labor. It's not free because some of these you got to drop the exhaust a little bit, depends where it's at. But what is the difference between me putting a washer to hold it up and putting a new one? Yeah, eventually, here's what's going to happen. I'll tell you, after a few years, the area around the washer will corrode and then it'll break and it'll fall, but so is the new one. So that's just the reality of the Rust Belt with heat shields. Freddie Rodriguez, what do you think about the new GR86? Oh boy, I don't like the GR86. I think Toyota could have first not called it the GR86. You could have called it the Celica. And the other thing is, we're still in this boxer experiment area. Now, we took Subaru makes decent cars, but they have better engines. Why don't we put better engines? The GR86 thrives beautifully, but it is super uncomfortable, at least to me. Maybe I'm getting old, I don't know. And it's not exactly record setting. People want a sports car to be fast. The GR86 is not fast. That's that's the unfortunate truth. It just isn't, and that's kind of working against it. The new one is nice. We don't have a lot of technical details on it yet, but it's just another basic car with a boxer that is a little bit bigger, and that's about it. Michael Orello, is it possible? I think we just answered that in the Forerunner, brother. On a 2021, you can change the low beam to an LED. You will have very slight glare, but not as bad as the one that like the whole halogen light without a projector. So Ethan Underwood, I have a 2011 Camry. When it cuts off, and it cuts off and I brake or slow down, what could it be? You have low oil. That's yeah, that's check your oil level, man, because there's likely you have zero, almost nothing in this engine left. That is one thing. If that's not the case and you've recently disconnected the battery, then clean throttle body. I really hope it's the throttle body, because if it's not, your engine's burning oil. You're gonna want to keep an eye on it. I destroy, super stressed about my Prius engine rattle. I don't see your question. So could you post it again or maybe leave it as a comment later? Because I don't know what was the question. Alan Holmes, CarPlay is crashing on my 2022 Highlander when I use CarPlay, navigation, Waze, Google Maps. Only way to get it back is turn off the car. There might be a software update for this, but the one thing I want you to do before you do the software update is first delete the phone, delete the car from your phone, reset the settings, all the settings to factory on the car, and then repair your phone and then reconnect it. Second thing, speaking of connection, make sure the cable you are using is an original Apple cable. A lot of people have fallen for this. Make sure it's not an aftermarket cable because it'll cause all kinds of problems. But otherwise, if this doesn't fix it, then take it to the dealership, let them check for updates. I think there is a recent update for that one. Stefano's 2016 Corolla at 33,000 miles. Last owner never changed the oil at 10 to 12,000 miles. I have since changed it at intervals of 5,000 miles. Currently 70,000 miles. Does not burn oil. Do you anticipate problems in the future? I doubt it. If you don't have problems at this point, you're good. I doubt that you will. Just continue on this regimen of 5,000 miles and you're good. I don't anticipate problems anytime soon. Beth Wakefield, where in a Toyota Venza 2010 is the cigarette burner charger thing? You plug it in. You plug it in to light your cigarette. So, Beth, newer cars don't really come with a cigarette lighter anymore. That is just, we still call it the cigarette lighter, adapter, but the cigarette lighter itself does not come with the car. You're gonna have to buy one, Amazon, whatnot. I don't think even Toyota sells them anymore, but you're gonna want to buy them. And honestly, I wouldn't trust them too much. They just don't work too well. But it's up to you. Stuart Bryan, the blind spot monitor is set to on, and after a few minutes, the warning light comes on and the main screen. So you're gonna have to check for codes and go from there. That's usually the first route of diagnosis to go from there. Chris, okay, let's just read the question. Hard to last name to read. I'm sorry about that. 2018 Tacoma TRD off-road. Does re-gearing the front and rear axles avoid my manufacturer's warranties? Yes, it does. Unless only to those components. So you re-gear your front end or rear end, and the radio goes out. That doesn't affect the warranty. Or your something a water pump starts leaking, that has nothing to do with it. But if a transmission goes out, yes, that could have to do with it. If anything with the four-wheel drive system, axle, of course, that will be void at that point. So Jay, I have all cylinder misfires on my 1ZZ engine. What could it be? I tried everything. So I'm going to need a lot more information, actually. Do you have codes? How many miles, what kind of car it is, what did you try? Everything is a lot of things. Some people will say everything because meaning they changed the filter and the spark plug. Some people will say I tore the engine apart and rebuilt it. But I need a little bit more information when you ask a question about something this specific. Stefanos P, what's the brake fluid change interval and is it necessary to auto bleed the ABS? I don't have a scanner. Can I instead activate the ABS several times during driving in the snow and then bleed again? So, Stefanos, when you're just replacing the fluid for the sake of replacing the fluid, you don't have to use a scan tool. You could just bleed it regularly and life's good. When you do replace the unit, then you need to use a scan tool to bleed it. So, Devin George, I have a 2003 Lexus ES300. My transmission skips at low speeds and downshifts going down hills. What should I do? Change fluid or get a new or rebuild transmission? Well, at this point, you have issues. Downshifts when going downhill might be normal, but the skips or the slipping, yeah, that might be an issue. Change fluid, it might make it a lot worse, or it might make it a little better. Most likely a lot worse, but give it a shot. And at that point, I would get a rebuild. I don't think there's no new transmission through Toyota even, so rebuild is your only option, or a used one. So, Dagstan, I'm from Australia. If you have a Toyota Orion 2017 in USA, why this car has a rough ride and feel all the road bumps? How can I check So this is similar. The Orion is similar to a Camry. I wonder if it has big wheels, 17, 18, even 19-inch wheels. Um, the tire pressure first. Make sure it's 32, 35 when they're cold. And if not, what size tire you have, or wheel, not tire. I think if you have a, a 19-inch wheel, you're gonna feel every bump in the road. Now change that to a 17-inch wheel, all of a sudden everything is a lot smoother. That probably has a lot to do with it, really. Naveen the Machine, the Tundra Hybrid will use a similar setup to the F-150 Hybrid Turbo V6 plus 10 speeds with electric motor sandwiched between the engine and transmission. Yeah, but that's an assumption because I don't like to say, oh, I think it will be this, and then a month later, oh no, it was not this, it was this. Do you see my cash here? I don't like speculating things. They're gonna come out, we're gonna know the information, and I'll make a video and I'll show you in the car and everything. But I just don't like to speculate. So another question here. After shifting into park for a car with automatic transmission, is it beneficial to engage the handbrake before releasing the foot brake to keep the stress off the parking pole? Absolutely. That is something I think everybody should do. And that's actually going to be in a soon video, not super soon, but in the near future, things you should do to your car to make it last longer. That is one of them. White Lion 1470. I have a 2016 Corolla. I think we already answered that. Please try not to post the same question over and over. Walt Pro, please don't post the same question again. Spencer Anderson, thoughts on a 2011 Toyota RAV4 Sport? So if this is a four-cylinder, be careful. You want to make sure that it has very good service history. These are also known for oil consumption. And I know it's not a 2AZFE. Come on. It's a 2ARFE, but that specific year, 2009, 10, and 11, they love to burn oil when they're not maintained right. That car should get 5,000-mile oil changes, but some people decided, we should go 10,000. Why not? We'll put synthetic. Don't do that, these engines. They really don't like their long oil change intervals. That will be the only thing stopping me. If it's a V6, it's a very good car. Just make sure it's in good shape. So, Night Rush. Hi AMD. Hope you're having a good weekend. I've been watching a bunch of your content. I respect your opinion, but one topic I'm still mixed on. What was your opinion on the use of 0W16? You claimed it's because of the variable oil pump, but the owner manual for other markets indicate it's happy on tons of oils. Do they not use the same oil pump? I cannot tell you what they use overseas, but they are different. Go with your owner's manual recommendation. Don't, this is, sorry, now you started a rant, so here it is, it's coming. You got to understand one thing. Toyota will not tell you to use an oil that is going to destroy the engine and just you're on your own. They will do some crazy stuff with like the transmission seal for life. That's kind of a bad move. But when it comes to engine oil, that's a little dangerous there. Use the recommended oil weight. If you live in Australia and it tells you there's different weights that you could use the correct one. If it tells you exclusively to use 0W16, follow that recommendation. As simple as that. 0W16, if you're an old school mechanic, you know what you're going to call it? Oh, it's just water. The same was said about 0W20. The same was said about 5W20 when we went down from 10W30 to 5W20. Oh my God, we're putting water in these cars. Yes. But you know what? They're designed to work with water. So why are you, if you want to put 20W50, go buy an old car. The new cars, they take the thinner oils and they work perfectly fine with it. Many examples of cars show up in my shop with well over 150,000 miles now with that engine, with the M20 A25A 0W16 from day one, and some of them even have 10,000-mile oil changes. They run perfectly fine. So I guess the water was not bad after all. So stick to the recommended oil. That's what I would say. I would do it in my personal car. Whatever it says in the manual is whatever's going in there. I change every 5,000 miles, 6 months, regardless of whatever oil analysis or somebody else says. And I never really had issues with any of my engines. So then after that, it is up to you. Hargani Yamaki, thank you so much for watching the live stream. So Mo Ilidas, sorry, I couldn't say that. So what's the best, healthiest lift for a 2020 Tacoma long term with little to no damage to stock components? So if you go a 2-3 inch lift, I think you're good. But once you start going over that, you're gonna start to really start the problems, if you would. I mean, even if it's 2-3 inch, you are stretching a few things, but it's within limits. The main concern is with the lift, with any lift, is two things: your drive shaft angle in the back, like how your drive shaft comes out of transmission and goes to the differential. That angle will change. But more serious than that is the front axles. So the axles will come out and they'll come, usually they actually come out and go up a little bit. But when you start lifting things, that axle will do this. It's not designed to work like that. It needs to be relatively straight to work right. So that's when you're going to start wearing your needle bearings. The axles will start going out and left and right. And that is actually a limitation of that design, because the solid axle in the front, you could do whatever and it'll be fine. But that's the limitation of having, that style of front drive to these cars. So you don't want to go over 3 inches. That's typically, there's some margin, some variance in the front suspension that allows for you to have that drop without causing significant issues. Well, I like this comment. Spider Logan, people that neglect their Toyotas drive me insane. You got that right, but I am with you there, brother. It just doesn't make sense. You bought a Toyota because it's reliable, then you neglect it and it becomes unreliable. It just kind of defeats the purpose. So Rick Veal, I have a 2011 Toyota Tundra. The right hand signal keeps burning out, and the ideas are input. So, do you have water intrusion? That's the one thing that I would think about. You didn't include if it was front or back. Uh, it's just, if it's, look for water intrusion. Is there moisture? Are you putting the right bulb? That's another thing. Make sure it's correct wattage and everything. If you're not sure, buy one from the dealership. Have them look it up, not just match a bulb for you. Um, those are the things I would look at. So we're gonna take a few more questions and we'll call it a day for the live stream. So Jack Brown, I switched from flood battery to AGM, I guess. On my 28 Camry, car becomes more responsive, mileage improved. My alternator puts out 13.8 volts. How to switch to 14.6? 13.8 volts is pretty acceptable, actually. And I wonder one thing, and this is, many people will wonder about this. The alternator in that Camry has a clutch, so it's not going to make full voltage at idle. But when your battery is dying or weak, it's actually going to jump up to that 14.6. Just trying to charge, it's trying to provide, and the battery is sucking down because it's getting charged, and that's not healthy actually for the alternator. So I wonder if you're looking at these differences. Your previous battery was probably really bad for a long time. 14.6, it's acceptable, it's within the range, but so is 13.8. I wouldn't worry, there's nothing wrong, everything is good in your case. So I'm going to randomly take 3 more questions and then we'll call it a day. I'm just going to go through the chat and we'll see. Let's see here. Austin, Greenland. Next time you have a meetup, I want to be there. My Lexus crashed during the last one. Yeah, I wanted to do a meetup this year, but I don't know. Kind of time passes, and you guys want a meetup here in Chicago area. Well, it's not even Chicago area. I live in the suburbs, by the way, but around Chicago suburbs. But I don't know. Do you think we still have time to do that? Well, Arjun Tuman, thank you so much, sir, for watching. The Blood Ray Channel 2007 RX 350 changed all four tires today, had them balanced, reinstalled, vibration above 65, rebalanced, vibration still there. So, did they road force balance them? It has to be so that um, rotate front to back and see if it makes a difference. If not, go back to the same place. And are they road force balancing? And are their machines? This is something. The machine is only as good as how well it's calibrated. Is this machine calibrated? That's another thing they want to look into. These machines need to be regularly calibrated to be accurate on the balance. So, Harel Garcia, is it good to change the oil every 2,500 miles, 0W20 synthetic for a 2018 RAV4? Does my car last longer? Honestly, if you keep it around 5,000 miles, 6 months, that should be good. That is safe miles. I'm not going to discourage you from going 2,500 miles. Might be a little bit on the excessive side, but if your finances allow it, more power to you, sir. Why not? I mean, you're not causing harm, of course, but is it excessive? A little bit. Maybe at the least I would do is 3,000. Then it kind of makes sense. Then becomes a little too much. All right, folks. So I will take one last question, and let's see. As the theme of the channel, last is always first. Let's take the last question. Stephen, 1774, 2010 Prius, just bought PO 171, PO 420, catalytic below threshold. So you're gonna need, first thing, the PO 171 will need some diagnosis. The PO 420 is most likely catalytic converter code. You most likely need a catalytic converter, but I would investigate, is this thing burning oil? That's the only thing that will kind of ruin the new cat again. The 171 could be a lot of things, but I would look for vacuum leaks first, external vacuum leaks. I would look for intake manifold gasket, could be the issue. And the mass airflow, get that cleaned. That's simple. But this is going to need a lot more diagnosis really to dig into it, to get to the root cause of PO 171. Look at the trim, fuel trims, look at a lot of things. So it's really not something very simple. Oh, yeah, it's this. But the PO 420 is a catalytic converter code. Most likely that's the case. But if this engine burns oil, I wouldn't run and replace it because you could ruin the new cat. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining the live stream. I will tell you one thing. We are going to have another live stream next week, just for everybody else. Same time, 7 p.m. next Saturday, October 2nd. And if you are new to the live stream, first, thank you so much for watching. And we have a live stream every 3 weeks. Live stream Saturday at 7. We will take 1 week off. We just finished our week off, which I spent fixing my dryer and replacing the furnace, but that's beside the point. The next 3 weeks, we're going to have a live stream. And what did I want to say? I forgot. I'm getting forgetful. It is the weekend. I got to go and sit down and relax. Actually, my voice going out. That's why I'm ending the live stream a little earlier, because I've been filming all day. We have a lot of good videos for you guys. All right, guys. So we'll see you next Saturday. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thank you so much for watching the live stream. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate all your comments, all your love. Thank you so much. Guys, until the next live stream, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And you guys have yourself a wonderful day.